Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho Season 3, Episode 11. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The penultimate episode of the series. My biggest question, other than just kind of like maybe him slipping into unconsciousness, I was so curious what the trigger was that kind of led to this situation, why Mob is in the situation he's in. But then I did kind of forget, like, the core aspect that is driving this is Mob doing what he did, of burying his emotions because of what happened to Risu. Like, the trauma of that, hence the title of the episode, is what kind of dictated his life going forward. Because Risu, at the student council meeting, immediately goes, crap, he senses it, he knows what it is. He even says he's feared this day. That's always been his greatest fear ever since he saw that side of Mob. That, like, I've been scared. I was dreading the day that would ever happen again, you know? And so he takes off and he's thinking to himself, like, my brother used to, like, show off his powers willingly. He used to get angry, but he'd also smile. But after that incident, he shut everything down. And I think the way he described it, I thought was so interesting that I'd never really contextualized it this way. And I think it's so interesting the show finally does. It's always been there, but I never thought of it that way, of like, what is that thing inside of Mob that happens every time he goes into the question mark mode? And it's simply, when he did that, Mob basically created because he, like, bottled that all up, basically his psyche almost split in two. There's a version of himself that he's been burying and repressing and not acknowledging, like, that's not me. You know, it's kind of an almost acknowledgement of, like, I have my powers, but I choose not to acknowledge them. I don't want them. I try to pretend like they're not a part of me, even though they're not you. Like, they are a part of him, but he kind of sometimes doesn't want to, like, for such a long time, didn't want to acknowledge them being a part of himself because he's so scared of them being the thing that defines him. Mob is still wreaking havoc on the city, and while Koyama and the other guy are holding their own, but even they can't really do anything, Suzuki steps in. And I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be maybe a more even match than it would be, but it's like, no, because I'm forgetting Suzuki, like, lost every bit of power he was building over those 20 years when him and Mob fought. And, like, that eruption of everything at the end of season 2, like, he lost everything he was building up. So he's kind of back to, like, a base level. He's super strong on his own, but still. So I love the whole, like, him rushing in, like, doing a rapid punch. But then the takeaway from it was Mob still remained unmoved, and then, like, blood splattered from Suzuki's hands. And just when he was about to get hit by another attack, lo and behold, his son came up. It's this really beautiful thing, especially later on when they do the kind of father-son charge bomb. Immediately makes me think of the father-son Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, shows here to bail his dad out because it's like, yo, like, I'm not going to just let my dad get beat up. So I'm here to back you up. Suzuki gets hit with some of Mob's attacks so that he can, like, even the playing field a little bit by absorbing some of that power. So they both work in conjunction, which is so interesting considering last season they literally fought each other. And so they start clashing and trying to attack him, but there's just so much power build up because that's what Suzuki's hoping for. That it's like there's a lot of power leaking out of him, but it's like if we can burn away his stamina, then we can, like, revert him back. Because they're like, right, he's lost control. The power is taking control of him. They're trying to burn through his stamina. But going through the fight, it ended up being too much for either one of them. Like, neither one of them can really do anything. To the point that Suzuki not only, like, got in front to protect his son to stop an attack from hitting him. It's like, I'm in such a wounded state. The only thing I can do is return the favor. Because I love that Suzuki's takeaway from all this initially was like, hey, I'm here to return the favor. You helped me back last season. It's my turn. And now it's like you were willing to sacrifice yourself to absorb all that energy in me. And to be fair, Mob kind of was willing to go that far for him. But also he made it clear, like, I'm not trying to die today. I'm trying to save you. But I also have to tell someone, Tsubomi, how I really feel. So I'm not going to, like, die here. And, you know, Suzuki was willing to go that far. He's like, right, I need to pay you back. I need to sacrifice for you. But in that moment, when he heard his son call his name, Suzuki stops himself because he thinks about like, right, he walked out on his family before or let them walk away. Like he pushed them away and he's thinking to himself, like, am I really gonna like sacrifice myself and leave them to kind of carry that? And it's like, okay, let's flee. He leaves with his son. And now it's like, for him, he chose his family and even says to Mob, he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not as strong as you. I think it's kind of a good thing. It's shown how much you've grown, that you aren't so obsessed with power. You're not just going to like let yourself die, that there is that self-preservation of the people I care about would be sad. I want to help you, but I also need to be there for my family. Like we are fixing what was broken before, and me going off sacrificing myself, who knows if it would even work in the long run, but me sacrificing myself in the long run would just hurt my family more, and I've already hurt them enough. I want us to be better at, than what we were, to get back maybe some of what we were before. And now the question is, well, who can stop Mob? And it's like, no one can, and so the Body Improvement Club comes across Mob and they're like, yo, we're going, because all the while, like, he's still being driven by his desires and he's still on the inside fighting back, but it's still not enough. And so the Body Improvement Club shows up. They're like, okay, he's sleepwalking, then we'll just kind of have to knock him awake, but they can't do anything, which even they're impressed, like, yo, so this is Shigeyo, like he's always been this powerful. And they're like, that's impressive, but they're also like, we like you as who you are, so could you go back to who you were? And so Risu shows up to save the day, kind of floats everyone who's knocked out from the Body Improvement Club. That last dude, like, that would have been bad. It looked, he was about to literally smash his head against a part of the railings or pieces of the metal parts of the bridge. But Risu steps up because it's like, right, he thinks back to the past. It's like, I really wanted to talk to you in the past, but he's like, I recognize that you were burying stuff, you were dealing with stuff you didn't want to talk to me about. And for him, it's like, that's the thing. Like, we used to talk about everything, but after that event, like, neither one of us wanted to be completely open and honest about it. It's been this like, very like, it's been this elephant in the room between us, and it's complicated our relationship. It played into some of, Ritsu's like insecurities and wanting to be just like his brother, having powers and stuff. And it's like on some deeper level, it's like, right, I wanted to have powers so I wouldn't feel so weak or scared when the time came, because he's even in front of this creature, this being that is his brother, but he's like, I for so long wanted to kind of say, like, you weren't my brother, you aren't, I was afraid of you, but now it's kind of like, no, you are my brother. This is a part of yourself that you just buried deep inside. And so like that fear has kind of kept me, at a distance, but it's like, at the end of the day, I'm your younger brother. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to listen to whatever you have to say. And Mob is on the inside scared because he's like, oh my God, history's going to repeat itself. I don't want what happened before to happen ever again. That was the whole point of all of this. Burying my powers, burying my feelings. Like, I don't want to be like that again. And that complex and that trauma is, eating away at Mob to the point that he's creeping ever closer to Risu. And just before he's able to get there, it's just like, it makes Risu realize, like, that's what this power is here for this moment to kind of help my brother. So he's trying to like destroy, I think he ultimately does end up destroying the flowers, but he has to like pierce through Mob's powers to get to it. And I even love, like, we finally have Risu on the other side hitting 100%, kind of fully tapping into his powers for this moment. But Mob's too much for him to handle, and even he's like, I don't, all we can do is hope that my brother comes back through. At the same time, we have Reagan and Serizawa showing up. Serizawa's got the good old umbrella with him, so they've got to make their move if they want to try and get to Mob, because there's a giant tornado. And I love the cut to literally everyone that Mob's ever interacted with. Like, the first people we saw, that's the couple from the first episode of the series of people when we get introduced to Reagan and this whole scam. That first couple he was working with, that was them. And just different people, Mob's, some frenemies, some enemies, some allies, just literally all these different characters Mob has interacted with over the course of the series, as this tornado is like running rampant in the middle of the city. Some people are like, yo, is this, some science thing going wrong? Some people are saying, like, no, like, maybe this has something to do with a psychic. So, and that was my big question, like, what will be the aftermath of like the city's destruction? Like, what will that mean in the aftermath for Mob? But either way, as they're they're closing in to try and get the mob. He's dealing with that being inside of himself. I'm going to make another reference. It kind of reminds me of Baum's situation. If you're familiar with Tower of God, he has like that nothingness void inside of himself, but that like Baum ends up absorbing a lot of stuff, and like it's depicted by like how much power he's using. There's like it's represented by like this line, this white line he's drawn into the what is essentially like the ground of this bottomless abyss. It kind of reminds me of that when it was like this squiggly shape that took on the form of the outline of Mob. He's like, oh, I'm Shigeo Kageyama. He's like, no, I'm Shigeo Kageyama. It's like, oh, I get it. You're Mob. You're the fake. And it's like, no, I'm the real you. I'm the real person. You've been, not want to acknowledge me. Like, you're the fake. You're putting on this front of like, this is who you really are. When the real you is me. There's unadulterated power that you refuse to acknowledge. And Mom's like, this would be better for just my power to disappear. And he's like, no, you should disappear. Because he's like, do you remember getting hit by that car? Your body was so messed up, you couldn't move on your own. So with your willpower and your powers, you actually move. But he's like, this isn't what I want. I shouldn't have to like try to get to Tsubomi, even though that's my deepest desire. I shouldn't be trying to get to her while in the process of hurting so many other people. He's like, that isn't normal. And he's like, normal for that like other side of himself. It's like, no, I'm the one that's normal. You're the abnormal one because you're the fake. You're not. You're this mask that you're wearing as Mob. You're Mob. You're the mask where I am the real Shigeo Kageyama. And it's like, if you just break and disappear, I can be finally free and not restrained like I have been in all this time. And so Mob's face cracks, and part of like his face peels off and flows over to the other Kageyama. Is like, soon you'll disappear and I'll be the only Shigeo Kageyama left. So it's this very like philosophical question of, it's kind of almost like I've been making this reference a lot lately, but I think it's applicable, like the whole boat of Theseus of it all. Just a very like philosophical question of self, of every aspect of you makes up who you are. We have different faces and different versions of ourselves we represent to people, but they all are us, even these masks that we might put up. But it's like, is that true? How much of like who he is, like how he presents himself in the world post everything with Ritsu, how is that really Kageyama? Or is this other version the real him, or is it everything together? I believe it's everything together, because the other version of himself thinks who he presents himself to the world is a mask, but I think it is just another side of you. You're two sides of the same coin. It's just neither one wants to acknowledge the other. Like, one, it's like, you're a side of me, like, you're not really me. The other side is like, well, you're not really me either. I'm the real version. You're just some mask that I wear. It's actually kind of interesting. Like, I think, another anime or / manga parallel to kind of make it. It's not a 1-to-1, but like if you're familiar with Rosario plus Vampire, it's a little bit of the Mona situation. How she had outer Mona and inner Mona. If you ever read the manga, you realize where that storyline goes and how complicated that gets, and what that represents in the grand total of things. But also when you get to the end of that manga and that story, the resolution to that conversation, I'm curious to see, will Mob have a similar resolution? I won't go into spoilers if you've never seen it, because I highly recommend you check that series out if you've never have. I honestly, I'd say the manga over the anime. For one, you'll be getting the full story, but also I like how they structured stuff more in the manga than they did the anime. But that's just a me thing. So yeah, I'm running my mouth, but I'm so interested to see where this all goes. The next episode is the series finale. How will this wrap up? How will this conclude? What will the aftermath be for Mob? What choice will he make at the end? What can Serizawa and Reagan do to reach out to him? I think that's probably going to be the irony, that all these people with powers, all these people stronger than Mob, the person who was fundamental to himself, because let's not forget, Reagan is the person Mob went to first when after coming to terms of like, deciding to handle the Risu, post the Risu incident, like after handling that situation the way he did, it was eventually him going to Regan asking for help. So that person is fundamental to him in so many ways and capacities, so that it's like you've always kind of been the foundation and cornerstone to a lot of who Mob is and his growth as a person. So it's like you being that person that can reach him in a way that no one else can. It's going to be fascinating to see how that is ultimately resolved and how Regan approaches this situation, how the series comes to an end. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.